What's up, you guys, and welcome back to my channel. Before I dive into today's video, I want to talk to you guys for just a quick minute about the Christian Andriacchio case. That is the video that I did last week. First of all, I want to say a major thank you to you guys. You guys offered so much amazing input in the comment section of that video, and you guys are just as passionate about the story and justice for Christian as I am and everyone who's heard the story so far. So massive thank you to you guys. Also, this is kind of a case that is going to be around for a while. This is something that I will be continuously involved in, continuously trying to help with. And on that note, I actually put out some extra information on the case on my community tab a couple of days ago. If you don't follow my community tab, I suggest you check it every once in a while. I post updates on there just about the channel in general, and then if anything huge happens in a case that I want you guys to know about right away, that's where I'm usually going to put it. So if you haven't seen what I posted on the community tab, make sure you go ahead and check it out right now. It's some very crazy information that it was about something that just happened this weekend. We basically have obviously hit some nerves with people involved in the situation, and I'm just going to leave it at that there. And I also received a lot of questions when I made that post if there was anything else people could do, because a lot of people weren't understanding what the benefit would be of listening and sharing my video or listening to and sharing the Culpable podcast. You guys, this is literally all the family has at this point. The family only has my video, John's videos, and Culpable, Sheila Wysocki, in order to spread the story of Christian. The authorities aren't helping, and we basically just need pressure at this point. So this is what we have to do. The views help push the story out to new people. It'll throw my video in suggestion boxes. The higher up Culpable is rated, the more it's going to be suggested to people. It's just the best way that we can get his story out there. But a lot of you guys wanted more, and I was able to figure out that Sheila said sometime this week, so hopefully by the time you're watching this video, there should actually be a petition that you can sign to have Christian's case looked into again. If it is already a petition that's up, I will make sure I have it linked down below, and I'll also post about it on the community tab. So now I'm jumping right into today's case, which is on Mekayla Bali, and this is one that has been suggested for I do not even know how long, and it's also one of those that I was almost sure more information would come out about. But it has now been past the 3-year mark, and there's still no information, and I have very strong feelings about it, so I figured I would go ahead and share it with you today. Mekayla Bali was 16 years old when she went missing on April 12th, 2016 from Saskatchewan, Canada. Again, I know I probably butchered that. All people from Saskatchewan say it differently. I try my hardest. But Makayla was always described as a really, really sweet young girl. She was shy, but that didn't prevent her from being a very popular and well-liked girl. She did struggle with bullying a little bit. She had pretty bad acne that she had to take medication for, and it kind of caused her to go into her shell every once in a while, but it didn't stop her from genuinely loving and caring about the people around her. She wanted to make sure that everybody felt welcome and content at all times. She was a great listener. She would sit and listen to absolutely anybody that needed it. She would try to give advice when she could. She just had this overwhelming sense of being or wanting to be a caretaker, which is probably why she wanted to go into childcare or being a veterinarian when she was older. There was one example that I heard that just kind of made me giggle because it reminds me of something that I would probably do. She so badly wanted to make sure people felt special that for her aunt's birthday, she learned how to play the accordion. She was already very talented. She played violin. She was in drama. So this probably was very easy for her. And she learned how to play it just so she could play her aunt happy birthday, which I thought was hilarious and so incredibly cute. She was just a great young woman, and she had a lot of great plans for the future, but she was 16, so things could get a little complicated at times, which is very typical for most 16-year-olds. The day that Makayla went missing was a very typical day at first. Makayla and her mom was a single mom, lived together. She had a younger brother and a younger sister, and I feel like their aunt possibly lived with them or was just over there a lot, but Makayla and her mother often woke up at the exact same time, and they would both get ready together. Makayla would get ready for school, her mom would get ready for work. They would talk about their day, talk about things going on in life, listen to music, mess around, and that particular day, the 12th of April, Makayla's mom didn't notice anything different. Makayla was acting herself. There was nothing unusual, no unusual behavior. And after they got ready, Makayla's grandmother was actually the one that always drove her to school and also drove Makayla's mom to work, which leads me to believe that Makayla's mother did not have a vehicle. So that morning, she dropped Makayla's mom off first, and then she dropped Makayla off at school. And she was supposed to pick her up at around 3:40 when school got out to take Makayla to her music class. But when she showed up to pick Makayla up that day, after again what appeared to start off as a very typical day, Makayla was not there waiting for her, and this was something that was highly, highly unusual. Makayla always was where she was supposed to be. She always told her mom where she was. She always was great about communicating, so it was very odd that she wasn't there. So her grandmother's first thought is, maybe Makayla's inside. Maybe she decided to just hang out inside of a classroom. So her grandmother went inside and started looking for her and even spoke to a few people, but teachers and her fellow classmates ended up telling Makayla's grandmother that none of them had seen her since earlier that morning, and she hadn't shown up to any of her classes. Makayla's grandmother decided to immediately show up at Makayla's mom's job, letting her know that something was very wrong and she couldn't find Makayla anywhere. Now, at first, Makayla's mom thought there had been some kind of misunderstanding. Again, Makayla wasn't the one to just not show up when she was supposed to. So her mom thought for sure she was probably just staying behind after in a class, or she had just some reason at the school that kept her there. So they went to the school and checked the school everywhere. Makayla's mom got so desperate that she started checking underneath the buses and in the most random places searching for Makayla. But unfortunately, there was absolutely no sign of her. So their next train of thought was, Makayla is really excited about music class because she had a pretty big recital coming up. She had spent the entire night before this practicing, and it was very likely that she was just really excited to get to music class and maybe just went there early and forgot to let her grandmother know. So they went to where her music classes were, and Makayla was not there. So at this point, they're both in an absolute panic because they can't reach Makayla. They've been texting her and calling her. They're receiving no response. So her mother starts to think along the lines of, what if she ran away? What if, she's off somewhere? But she knew that there was one way that she would know for a fact if Makayla had ran away or not. As a single mother, she had a stash of money kept in their house. And Makayla knew about this stash of cash. She knew where it was. She knew that she was allowed to use it if she needed to. And Makayla's mom knew that if she was planning on running away, she would have gone and grabbed as much cash as possible, if not all of it. But when she went to check, all of the money was there. There was not a single dollar that was unaccounted for. And this sent her into even more of a panic. And when they checked Makayla's room, she hadn't even taken her phone charger. She hadn't taken any of her makeup, which again was very important to her because she was very self-conscious about her acne. She didn't take her acne medication with her, which is another thing that she would never, ever, ever skip a dose of. She hadn't taken anything. It didn't appear as if she had left for any extended period of time. All of the things that she would have taken with her were still there. So by 8 p.m., Makayla was reported to authorities in Yorkton, which is where they lived in Saskatchewan, that she was a missing person. One of the first places that authorities checked was the school. She went to Sacred Heart High School. It was a religious school, and they wanted to check to see, what happened when she arrived and what her friends possibly might have seen or known. And her friends had quite a bit to say about the day before. Right off the bat, they hadn't noticed anything abnormal about the day before she disappeared, so this would be April 11th. But once they started talking to authorities, there were definitely a few things that stuck out as odd after the fact. Makayla had two really close friends, Shelby and Oksana, and on the 11th, they hopped into the car at lunch and they went to a fast food restaurant. They talked about typical things that teenagers talked about, and Makayla had spoken about wanting to go somewhere, maybe a place called Moose Jaw or Prince Albert. So it was clear that she had been mentioning she wanted to leave somewhere, but she was never really clear about if she wanted to go alone or if she wanted to go with people. And I think her friends just took it as her wanting to move somewhere when she graduated from high school, because they had often talked about moving to a bigger town. The town they lived in was very, very small. They didn't like the fact that there weren't any trendy stores in the mall. They wanted something bigger and better. So this is pretty much what they brushed that conversation off to. And then they went to talk to her teacher at her class after lunch, and her teacher said that she noticed when Makayla got into class that day, Makayla was definitely acting a bit off. But again, that's not very untypical for a 16-year-old to come into class a little bit moody after lunch. It's kind of difficult to leave the school and have to come back to it. So again, the teacher thought nothing of it. Other classmates that day remembered that Makayla had been speaking about going to Regina on vacation with her family, and I've spoken about Regina before in another case that I've covered, and it's about 2 hours away from Yorkton where she was living. But Shelby, her friend, says that she also heard her possibly say she was going to Saskatoon with family for vacation. So at this point, she's mentioned about 4 different places she's claiming she wants to go or is planning on going to, all just on the 11th. I know her friend said it was very typical of her to talk about wanting to move to different places and go to different places, but this many places and, that coming up as a topic of conversation this many times the day before she disappears is definitely something to me that is abnormal. This isn't the only information that her friends had to offer up. Shelby also heard Makayla talking about a young man named Josh. Now, I guess when Shelby asked her about Josh on the 11th, Makayla completely ignored her, wouldn't respond to her question. I don't know if she just heard it and ignored it or something along those lines. All I know is that Shelby asked and Makayla wouldn't give up any information. But the thing that's kind of unsettling about this is that Shelby had no idea who Josh was. It wasn't someone they went to school with. And Makayla had a habit of using a lot of different messaging apps. She would meet people online. As I said, she struggled from bullying, and while she was a popular girl, she was still very shy, so it was much easier for her to connect with people online, which can be an incredibly dangerous thing, especially because she would meet random people on Snapchat, on Facebook, on Instagram, and she also used Kik, I'm pretty sure. I don't know if this is absolutely confirmed, but I have seen it on a couple of sources. And Kik, you basically don't have to even accept someone as a friend. You don't have to know anything. You can just find random people, and strangers can talk to strangers, and there is just no way of tracking it. You only see this person's screen name or handle. I've never used it, so I'm not sure how it works. And she made friends with people on these different apps all the time. And there were at least 4 guys that her friends said that she had, kind of communicated with. There were people from Canada. There was at least one person from the United States. She met people on there all the time. And this isn't the only young man that she had spoken about that day. One of her friends, Amy, who she was also decently close with, had spoken to her about a guy named Christopher. And Makayla had said that Christopher was actually coming to Yorkton to meet her. She didn't say Yorkton in particular. I think she just said Saskatchewan, which is a very large area. But this kind of, again, falls in line with her meeting someone online, because this indicates she clearly had never met this person, in person at least, and this person was traveling from somewhere outside of their province to meet her. Now, Makayla, however, offered up absolutely no more details about Christopher, no more details about Josh. So now we have 4 different locations she's talked about and at least 2 different men. School ended again at around 3:40, and then at 4:35 the day before Makayla went missing, Makayla ended up texting Oksana and asked if Oksana could take her to the TD Bank the next day. And she told Oksana it was something that was incredibly important and she really needed her help with this. From what I've seen, Oksana agreed, and then after this, Makayla called TD Bank customer service 3 separate times. So clearly, she needed to talk to someone at the bank physically about something. And then right after this, she ended up transferring $25. I've tried to clear up what exactly this means. I don't know if she transferred $25 from her account to someone else's or from one of her accounts to another. All I know is she transferred $25. Later that night, between 8:50 and 9:30, Makayla then texted 3 separate people. She texted an ex-boyfriend, Shelby, and Amy. She told Amy, the one that she had been speaking to earlier about Christopher, that she needed help. But when Amy asked her what she needed help with, Makayla never responded back to her. She then messaged Shelby about a boy, and she was saying that she felt bad for someone and that she was crying and very, very upset, but I don't know any more details about that conversation. And then she texted her ex-boyfriend saying that she wasn't happy and she was thinking about going to Regina for a couple of days. So again, this is the second time that we know of that she's mentioned going to Regina. It's very clear that Makayla was struggling with something. She had mentioned being unhappy. She had mentioned wanting to go away. She had mentioned 2 different guys. She had mentioned being upset. And she seemed to be stressing out over this whole bank situation. So the following day, when she went missing, again, apparently was very normal according to her mother, but at 6:41 that morning, she texted Oksana asking if Oksana could go ahead and take her to the bank. But Oksana told Makayla the bank probably didn't even open until 8, and this seemed to not necessarily make Makayla mad, it seemed to just kind of make her distressed, because her response was something along the lines of, well, then how are you going to take me? Almost like she was irritated that, Oksana said she would take her, but the bank wasn't open. I could totally be reading that wrong. It's really difficult to understand the tone and thoughts of someone through just their words through a text message, but that was just how I felt about it the very first time that I saw it. But either way, Oksana wasn't able to take her because it didn't open until school opened pretty much, so she went on about her morning. Makayla's grandmother said she dropped her off that morning between 8:10 and 8:20, again after dropping her mom off at work, and at 8:22, Makayla is in fact captured at the school. She was inside, she is seen putting a binder into her locker, and then she leaves out of the back entrance of the school. She never showed up to her first period. I do know that her ex-boyfriend did text her asking her where she was, but I have absolutely no idea if she ever responded to his text. Authorities spent forever looking through pretty much all of the CCTV they could have access to in the town to figure out where exactly Makayla went next, and they were able to see that by 8:51, so roughly 30 minutes later, she arrived at TD Bank, and this is the bank that she had been asking Oksana to take her to for about a day now. It's the same bank she had been calling and the same bank she had transferred the $25 within. When she got there, she was on her phone, talking on her phone. The bank wasn't quite open yet. And then when they finally opened, she went in and withdrew $55 from the account and was leaving the bank by 8:55. She stood outside for a bit, again, talking on her phone. And so authorities were trying to see through phone records who exactly she was talking to see if that gave them a little bit more insight into what she was doing. But when they looked, there had been absolutely no calls made from her phone the day that she went missing on April 12th. So again, it was very likely she was communicating with someone through an app. Now, I know you can call people through Facebook, you can call people through Snapchat, you can call people, I think, maybe through Kik. There's also apps that are specifically for calling people. But what this basically was suggesting was that whoever she was talking to or whatever she was doing, she for some reason wanted to keep it a secret, or she wanted to keep maybe a part of her identity a secret, maybe her personal information. No one is really honestly sure because we can't ask her ourselves. After withdrawing the money, Makayla left the bank and she immediately went across the street to a place called Terry's Pawn Shop. And she got there right when the owner was opening up, and she was trying to pawn 1 or 2 rings. The owner, I don't think, could ever really figure out how many or remember how many, but he does remember that they were just very small silver rings. They did not have a lot of value to them, so he didn't make her an offer. And she didn't get overly upset about this. She didn't seem like if she didn't have this money from these rings, everything was going to end. She simply just said thank you and she left. Just a few minutes later, she was seen again at 9:10 at the local Tim Hortons, and she bought a coffee before sitting down and using her phone again. There was even one point in time that they saw through security footage where it appeared like she took her phone apart and put it back together. In the footage, she seems to have a backpack with her that's incredibly full, and at first that doesn't seem too odd because she was technically supposed to be at school that day, but according to her friends, that is something that was a huge red flag for them because Makayla did not like using a book bag. She usually only brought a purse to school. She typically only took home the things that she needed, and then she would just get things out of her locker as she needed it. So this overflowing backpack kind of worried people that she had packed stuff in it as if she was planning to go somewhere. So then at 9:23, 13 minutes later, Makayla got up to leave and she walked through the exit, but then she turned back around, came back into Tim Hortons, and walked out of the restaurant through another door. Now, I'm not sure if it took her to just like a different side of the store or what exactly is the deal with that, but it's definitely a little bit strange. She wasn't seen again until 9:42, so about 20 minutes later when she walked out from behind a store named Giant Tiger, and then she headed back to Tim Hortons. It appeared as if she was talking on the phone again as she walked into Tim Hortons at 9:49 exactly, and it probably was another call made through another app because again, there were no phone calls from her phone the entire day. About 20 minutes later at 10:12, Makayla ended up sending a text message to Shelby saying, "Hey, I need help from the Tim Hortons." She then proceeded to be on and off of her phone 6 total times. So 6 different phone calls within the next half hour. And then once she was done with these phone calls, she texted Shelby back and said, "Never mind, I figured it out." Makayla, as soon as she sends this text message, grabbed her bags again and left Tim Hortons again. But for the third time, she turned right back around and came back into Tim Hortons. So she literally walked out, walked right back in. She again made another string of phone calls, and during one of the last phone calls at 10:39, while she was on the phone, she started looking around her almost as if she was looking for someone. And once the call ended at 10:43, she got up and immediately beelined it for a woman that was sitting next to her at another table. Now, Makayla, once they tracked down this woman, she had actually asked this woman to help her get a hotel, but apparently she offered up no details. The woman didn't know if it was because she needed help with money or maybe she needed help because she was too young to get a hotel room on her own. I have seen kind of conflicting information on location. I've seen that she also did not tell the woman where she needed this hotel, but I've also seen that she specifically asked for a hotel in Regina, but all we do know is she was asking this woman for help and the woman ended up denying her. But again, Makayla didn't seem super upset. She just walked right back over to the booth, started a phone call, and within less than a minute, she was leaving Tim Hortons again. Now, for about an hour, I don't think anyone really knows where exactly she was, but based on the distance from Tim Hortons to the school, it is very likely majority of the time was spent walking back to school because at around 12, I think just a few minutes before, Makayla is seen returning to school and talking to 2 students at the school. She apparently told these 2 students that she was about to take a bus to go on vacation in Regina, but the conversation was incredibly short and within minutes she was leaving. And the only odd thing that the students saw was that it appeared as if she had 2 phones. So now authorities are questioning whether she really was using an app and that's why no phone calls were listed as coming out or into her phone that day, or if she had just been using a second phone this entire time. Now, this might have already been ruled out based on footage. I don't know if they've successfully ruled out a second phone or not, but I personally think it would have been very easy maybe for her mom to look at this footage and identify the phone that she had been using as her own or not. There's always a chance it matched the same phone. It looked exactly the same. But again, I'm just unsure if there was ever an outcome with that. She had in fact texted friends while she was either on her way back to school or had come back to the school saying that she would see them at lunch, but based on her next movements, she didn't actually stick around. Makayla was not seen again until she showed up at the local bus stop. Now, this is where information gets a little bit foggy. I don't think there's any security footage past this point, really, and we're basically relying on witnesses. An employee at the bus stop said that Makayla had come in sometime between 10 and 12. And based on the information that we have and the security footage that we have, the timeline that I've already talked about, it's more likely that she showed up right after 12. Maybe she went before she went to school. I just don't think that's very likely. But she walked up to the person selling tickets, this employee, and she asked when the next bus for Regina was leaving. And she was told it would leave at about 5 p.m. that day. But she never actually bought a ticket. After this, she stopped at the little cafe that they had in this bus station. She ordered some poutine, and she was apparently seen leaving sometime between 1 and 1:45. And this is when authorities kind of got their first big tip that they thought was going to solve this case. The person that saw Makayla leave saw her leave with a man that had a flaming cross tattoo on the back of his forearm. So they created this sketch of the tattoo and they threw it out to all the media that they possibly could. But I do believe this man himself came forward and he said he was simply holding the door open for Makayla, and they were able to back his story, and he was completely ruled out. There are no more sightings of Makayla. There is, no communication from Makayla's phone the rest of the day. And then the following day, April 13th at 6:51 a.m., Makayla's phone was shut off. And based on the way I've seen authorities say this, they did not say it either shut off or was dead. They said somebody shut her phone off specifically. From this moment, there has been no activity on her social media, on her phone, or on her bank card. We do know that she at least had $55 in cash. She did spend some cash when she went into Tim Hortons, and she also spent some cash when she bought poutine at the bus stop, but that probably equaled less than $10. So she at least had likely around $45 cash on her. We know that she didn't take any money at all from the stash that her mom had, and I don't believe she had a job or any access to any other money. So it's safe to say that this $45 to $55 was pretty much all she had with her. The only activity she might have possibly had on her social media was on Snapchat about 3 months after she disappeared. Shelby, I think it was Shelby at least, was sending her messages on the day that she went missing, and they had remained unopened until about 3 months later. But authorities, from what I have seen, were never actually able to prove this. You obviously have no way of proving if Makayla herself was the one that opened it, but basically she could have, but nothing has been confirmed. There have been hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tips sent in to authorities. This is a very well-known case in the area, but unfortunately they are no closer to getting answers at all when it comes to Makayla's whereabouts or what exactly happened that day after she left the bus stop. Authorities had to work tirelessly, like absolutely tirelessly, for months to gain access to any of her social media, which was crucial to the investigation because that is how Makayla communicated with so many people. And if she was in fact meeting someone that she had met online, her social media sites would be the only way authorities would get pretty much any information, because even her closest friends didn't know a lot of the things that Makayla was doing. But unfortunately, a lot of these different social media sites are based in the United States. So because they were in Canada, they were going around this line of privacy. Things are very different between Canada and the United States. So it took 10 whole entire months for them to get some of the most crucial information in the case, because they had to wait on social media sites, which I think is absolute BS, but we're not gonna hesitate there for too long. All of Makayla's social media sites were still there. They were not active, they are not active, but all of them do still exist. And the only strange thing is that she had, I think, multiple Instagram accounts, and one of them had a very large following, but there were absolutely no pictures on it. And I've seen authorities state they believe it's possible that this means all of the pictures had been deleted. I do not know if her friends know any better than that or if her family knows any better than that, but authorities have stated it's a possibility. And then another very strange thing is that in the About Me section, so the bio section, all it says is goodbye. So despite getting all of this information from the social media sites, a lot of it, was protected by different privacy laws. A lot of it had not been stored. So they couldn't get any more information than they even originally had. So they started to look into the different hotels in the area in Yorkton. They wanted to see if maybe she had attempted to get a hotel somewhere, if someone recognized her at any of the hotels. But unfortunately, no one in Yorkton at any of the hotels remembered Makayla getting a room. I think it's very disappointing because authorities have stated that they only checked the hotels in Yorkton. If I were in the authorities' shoes, yes, I would have checked Yorkton, but I probably first would have checked Regina. If there's such a huge possibility that she asked this stranger in Tim Hortons for a room specifically in Regina, why on earth wouldn't you check there? Now, again, I don't know for a fact that Makayla stated this to this woman. I've seen conflicting information. But even just the information her friends had given, that she wanted to go to Regina, that she wanted to go to Saskatoon, that she wanted to go to Moose Jaw or Prince Albert, I would have checked every possible place. It's a lot of work, but when someone has stated that multiple times, it's worth checking out, absolutely. But authorities just kept hitting dead ends. Everything that they did do, they were having absolutely no success whatsoever. They even checked a local lake and or large pond that was right beside the school that would have kind of been on her walk, just in case there had been some sort of accident where she fell in. They started to look into different theories, and they started to wonder if maybe Makayla wanted to find her dad. Now, Makayla's mom has not been very open or forward with this information, which I understand. It is her personal and private life. I completely get it. Either way, Makayla did not know her dad. She didn't know her dad's name. She knew nothing about him. And there's actually a lot of conflicting information as well about Makayla's dad, according to her friends. She had told some people she went to school with that he was dead, but then she told other people that she wanted to try to find him and meet him, and she had no idea who he was. And there was actually a man named Rick that popped up out of nowhere as possibly being Makayla's father. At least he believed he could definitely be Makayla's father, and I think to this day, he actually runs a Facebook page for Makayla. He has participated in a lot of searches, but again, nobody really knows, and Makayla's mom refuses to answer if he is the dad or not. Either way, he came out and he said he could possibly be the father, and the authorities asked, did you have any communication with her? Is she with you? But unfortunately, he had never actually been in contact with Makayla at all. So maybe she went off looking for her father, but the man that could possibly be her father, she definitely wasn't with. I know it's confusing. Hang in there with me. They also looked at the possibility of the guys that she had been speaking with. Makayla had apparently been sent this mysterious box of flowers on Valentine's Day just the few months before she disappeared, and everyone thought it was really strange because the flowers showed up in an unmarked cardboard box, which means they likely were ordered online and shipped to her. And when everyone asked her who these flowers were from, she wouldn't answer anybody. Now, authorities were somehow, which I find amazing, able to figure out exactly who sent Makayla these flowers, and they were able to rule this person out. So even though it seemed like a potential love interest that could have had something to do with her wanting to run away, it kind of led to yet another dead end. Then decided to get in contact with Christopher. This is the one that Amy had been speaking about, Makayla talking about that day. Christopher was actually from North Carolina and was one of the people that she had in fact met online. But when they finally found him, I guess they did have his last name. He declined to answer pretty much any of their questions, but he did respond with an email. And he said that he wasn't going to talk about his conversations with Makayla, but that she had suffered from self-harm a few years back. He said that at the time that he was speaking with Makayla, he was helping people that struggled with self-harm, trying to encourage them to not self-harm and encourage them to look to God. She did go to a religious school, so this kind of matches up and makes perfect sense. But a lot of people find it odd that he refused to speak to police about their conversations. However, I do think it's understandable. It was something that was very personal and private to her. There wasn't ever any evidence found that Christopher was in fact in Canada at the time that Makayla went missing, and there's also absolutely no evidence that she was suicidal at the time she went missing either. Now, to me, this is debatable in the sense of she was asking multiple people for help. However, it appeared that she was asking for help with things like rides to the bank and potentially money, so I don't think her statements of "I need help" had anything to do with her being in an emotionally fragile or suicidal state, but you never really know what could be going on. And a lot of times when people are suffering from suicidal thoughts or any sort of issues with mental health, they will reach out for help in a very kind of roundabout, protected way. They also tried to find Josh, but the issue with this guy named Josh was that they didn't have a last name for him, and Josh is a very, very common name. They did go through quite a lot of Joshes when they were looking for people, and I guess they settled on one that she had met at a youth church event a couple of years prior. They did talk to him. I don't know if they were ever able to confirm if this was the right Josh or not, but all they knew is that he said he hadn't spoken to her in 3 years, so they were able to rule that Josh out, thinking it more than likely was the Josh she had been talking about. Other than that, there is no more information on this case whatsoever, and it is incredibly frustrating to me that we have this moment by moment timeline pictured up by CCTV, pictured by friends, pictured by employees, but it just stops. And that really leads me to one specific theory that I personally believe is the strongest one. To me, it seems like there were definitely plans of some sort. She had plans that day. The way you see her move on the security footage, the multiple places that she went to asking people for help the day before, I just feel like she did everything with a purpose that day and the day before in preparation for these plans. I'm worried it's a huge possibility that she met someone online and they possibly were grooming her, essentially. Her mother has said she thinks it's very likely Makayla was put into sex trafficking, and I honestly think that's a huge, huge possibility, but I also think it's a possibility that just one single person was targeting Makayla. With the amount of phone calls that she seemed to be making that day, it seems like someone was maybe instructing her. With her looking around while on a phone call and then immediately going and talking to a woman, all I can picture is someone on the other end of the line saying, well, we need help getting a hotel room. Look around you. Is there someone that you can go and ask? That's really all I can think of. And then every time that she left and was on the phone and then went back inside, all I can think of is someone being like, no, like go back and sit in there. What if she thought she was, maybe being seen as sketchy and she wanted to leave, but this person wanted her to stay? I just feel like someone else was really pulling a lot of the strings that day. She was just clearly waiting for someone to either always help give her an answer to a problem she was having, or she was waiting for someone, or she was just waiting to be instructed. She also seemed to really want to speak to someone at the bank the day before she disappeared, and I'm wondering if the transfer of the $25 has anything to do with this. I think about all the times that I need to call customer service at the bank, and it's usually when I need to do something and I'm not sure if I have the ability to do it, or if I need them to help me do something. And it makes me wonder if maybe she was trying to transfer that money to another person, like a completely different bank account. She didn't know how to do it. So that to me is a very, very interesting aspect in the story, is how important the banks seem to be, which again makes me wonder if someone else was saying that they needed money, they needed this, they needed that, and she was trying to do that for them. A lot of people probably will argue that theory because she easily could have taken money from her mom, which I completely understand. But to me, I feel like whatever she was planning on doing, whatever plans she had, whatever mini vacation she was saying she was going to take, it was not going to be something that was long-lived. It was something that was meant to be maybe even for just that day. And I highly doubt she would have wanted to take that money from her mom, knowing her mom was going to question it, and she was then going to have to tell her mom why exactly she needed it, which could have been for a hotel room or something like that. Or if she was in fact planning on running away for an extended period of time, from the relationship that I've seen she had with her mother and her brother and her sister, she would never ever take money away from people that she cared about, knowing they needed it to survive. So to me, it's definitely strange she didn't take this money, but I can also see multiple different reasons as to why she wouldn't have done it. Another thing leading me to believe that she was not planning on being gone for an extended period of time, and my personal belief is that she actually probably planned on being back by the end of the school day, was the fact that she didn't take her phone charger with her, she didn't take her medicine with her, she didn't take her makeup with her. I honestly believe she left that morning thinking she would immediately be able to have money to hop on a bus, go somewhere, and be back in time for her grandmother to pick her up. I think that could explain why she wasn't acting odd to her family, because she might have thought they never ever would know the difference, that she would be back in time and everything would be fine. Now, to me, there was some sort of plan in place, and I think it just went very, very wrong along the way. And there's something that I noticed that I haven't really seen anyone say yet, so let me know your opinions on this. She kept mentioning Regina, possibly meeting someone in Regina, going on vacation in Regina. It is a 2-hour drive from Yorkton to Regina. She was seen at the bus station from like 12 to like 1:45-ish. That's about 2 hours at the bus station. What if she realized she just could not get enough money for this bus ticket? There was no way. There wasn't even a bus leaving until 5 p.m. And what if the person she was supposed to meet that was possibly in Regina offered to just drive up and come pick her up? It fits with the time frame that she was at the bus station. I don't think it's a coincidence that she sat at the bus stop pretty much wasting time for 2 hours and then left the bus stop and is just never seen again. We know she had a history of meeting strangers online, and when you feel like you don't fit in somewhere, or when you feel like you're being bullied or struggling, or you can't connect to the people around you, it makes you that much more vulnerable to someone online that can be incredibly manipulative. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if she really had just been groomed by some sort of predator this entire time. Now, we also have to look at the possibility that she really did run away, that she wanted to leave for an extended period of time, just because that's always something that's possible. But based on the facts that we've been given, I just don't see it as being as possible as her being groomed by someone. If she wanted to leave for a long period of time, she would have taken a lot of stuff with her. And I know that she had this book bag with her and it seemed to be really full, like she was going somewhere. But wouldn't you think that while she was packing up, she would have thought to bring her phone charger? You know, she was talking to someone over the phone. She knew that in order to keep in contact with this person, she would need her phone charger, but she didn't take it with her, which to me, again, just supports the idea that she was planning on being back likely after school was over with. She also didn't take her medication, and if she was so worried about, not fitting in and being bullied, her acne was huge. That was pretty much the reason why she was being bullied the most from what I've seen. I could be wrong, But I would assume at that point she would want to take her medication. She would want to take her makeup. If she was meeting some guy for the first time and she wanted to go and live with him and she wanted to run away and be with him, you know, when you haven't seen someone face to face and when you're self-conscious like I've seen that she was, you're going to want to put makeup on. There's currently a $50,000 reward for any information that leads to Makayla's safe return, and I want to make that very clear. Her family is suffering, and it is heartbreaking to watch. They have done quite a few interviews. Makayla's aunt says that she either writes a letter to Makayla or she emails Makayla at least once a day, and has since the day that Makayla went missing. Her mom and her siblings can't even sit at the dining room table because Makayla's gone and it doesn't feel right, and they refuse to do it. Right after Makayla disappeared, they even all slept in the living room together because, again, nothing felt right. And Makayla's mom was petrified if she didn't constantly keep an eye on Makayla's younger brother and sister, that something would happen to them too. She had them pulled out of school for a while, and then even when she sent them back, she went and checked on them during her lunch every single day. As a mother, that is a feeling I cannot fathom having to deal with. They have put up over 6,000 posters of Makayla in Canada and the United States. There was a point in time where someone believed they had seen Makayla in Washington State, but unfortunately nothing was ever confirmed or I think even ruled out. And they also hold a candlelight vigil on the anniversary of her disappearance every single year in Yorkton. Authorities believe it is very, very possible, since Makayla went and asked this random woman for a hotel for help, that she likely spoke to maybe a couple other people that day asking for help, and they need those people to come forward. They want these people that could have potentially helped Makayla to know that they are not in trouble in any way, shape, or form. They just might hold the answer to the next step in Makayla's case. Maybe someone gave her a ride somewhere. Maybe she asked someone for some money. Maybe she asked someone else to help her get a hotel room. And you know, there are a lot of people out there that will do this, not think twice about it, and then not connect it to missing persons situations like this. This is why this case so badly needs to be pushed out into the public so much more than it already has been, because there could absolutely be somebody out there that helped her that day. Please make sure you leave all your theories and comments down below. Always remember to be respectful. On that note, I'm gonna go ahead and go, you guys. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to Makayla's story. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already to become a part of the Hallan fam, so we can hopefully bring them home together. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.
Makayla, know that you are loved. Honey, never give up. I will never stop searching. As I've said before, my treasure's lost. I will devote myself to finding you. There is no more sense of sane or normality or continuity in a fractured family. One can't sit at a dining room table with an empty spot. One can't sleep in a comfy bed not knowing where your child is.